Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and in today's show, you're going to learn why bigger muscles aren't necessarily better. All right, let's jump in. You probably know that the way you train shapes your muscle size and also shapes your muscle function. For example, if you lift heavy weights, you can build strong, dense muscle. And if you lift very light weights, especially if you don't lift to muscular fatigue, you just build muscle endurance and smaller, less dense musculature. If you choose exercises that involve, say, multiple joints working all at the same time, like a deadlift or a squat, you tend to build coordination and natural movement patterns, while if you choose single joint exercises like a bicep curl or a leg extension, you tend to fatigue muscle and build lots of lactic acid in a muscle group, but from a functional standpoint, you may not build quite as much coordination or athleticism. Now, if any of this is confusing to you, you might want to check out my episode, How to Build Muscle, and I'll link to that in the show notes for this episode, which you can find over at episode number 256 at quickanddirtytips.com. Now, when it comes to overall health, though, what kind of muscle training is best? Well, you're about to discover the answer, along with why you may actually not want to be training your muscles to simply get bigger. So, a recent study entitled Single Muscle Fiber Contractile Properties Differ Between Bodybuilders, Power Athletes, and Controls looked into the muscle fiber contractile properties of muscle biopsies taken from the quadriceps muscle of bodybuilders who'd been engaging in low to moderate intensity, high volume resistance training and compared these muscle fibers to power athletes who had been engaging in high intensity, low volume training. So what's the training difference between bodybuilders and power athletes? Well, bodybuilders tend to perform lots of sets with a high number of repetitions, literally blasting a single muscle group like the chest over and over again to beat it up, let it recover, and then maximize that muscle group's size. Meanwhile, power lifters just lift as heavy as possible a weight as quickly and explosively as they can, using a relatively low number of sets and reps. Because of this, bodybuilders tend to be big and bulky with lots of muscle mass, while powerlifters tend to be smaller and wiry with not too much muscle, although the muscle they do have is very powerful, explosive, and athletic. Now, the study that I mentioned didn't seem too groundbreaking with regards to its findings. The researchers simply discovered that high intensity, low-volume resistance training, the type performed by powerlifters, caused significantly different training adaptations compared to the low to moderate intensity, high-volume training style of bodybuilders. Perhaps more interestingly, they found that the adaptations to training went beyond simple changes in muscle fibers, and they found that the different styles of training, powerlifting versus bodybuilding, caused changes in important markers of muscle health and recovery, including myofibrillar density, think of this as having harder muscles, and post-translational modifications of contractile protein. Think of this as you being able to use foods to help muscles recover faster. In both cases, the powerlifting, quick explosive lifting, won out. So now that we know that there's two different kinds of muscle you can build depending on how you train, the question is, which of those kinds of muscle is healthiest? Well, one study looked into this, putting a group of men on a 12-week strength training routine in which half the men did their strength training while taking antioxidants, in this case 1,000 milligrams per day of vitamin C and 235 milligrams per day of vitamin E, and the other half had no antioxidants. Well, not surprisingly, both groups gained muscle mass, but the placebo group, the group that wasn't taking antioxidants, gained more muscle mass and more muscle thickness, with an increase of almost 4% muscle mass in the placebo group compared to just 1.4% in the antioxidant group. The antioxidant group also did not get as big of an increase in muscle thickness, with an increase of muscle thickness of 10.9% in the antioxidant group and 16.2% in the group that wasn't taking antioxidants. So, as I've discussed before on other episodes, it appears that there is some potential for high-dose antioxidants to blunt gains in muscle size, with the caveat that this only really seems to occur if you're training at such a minimalist level that you don't actually need all those extra antioxidants. In other words, a man strength training a few days a week is going to have far lower needs for extra help from antioxidant supplements compared to, say, a hard-charging Ironman triathlete. However, the interesting thing is this same study looked into something else: strength. Specifically, they looked at 1 rep maximum weight, or 1 RM, on leg extension and leg press. Interestingly, the group that took the antioxidants increased their 1 RM by more than the placebo group, with a strength gain of 18.7% compared to the non-antioxidant group's 15.8%. In other words, the group that took antioxidants did not gain as much muscle mass, but they did gain more muscle strength. And ultimately, just like powerlifting, a smaller muscle that can exert more force but requires less metabolic energy to maintain is easier to carry and cool and requires less oxygen and nutrients could actually be a more healthy muscle, especially compared to a big, less functional muscle that generates less force despite all those bulky fibers. So, when it comes to muscles, the point here is that bigger may not actually be better. So, a little bit more about why bigger muscles aren't necessarily better. Having small muscles capable of high amounts of force production may mean you have the healthiest muscles. If you had to choose who would live longer and feel healthier, the small, strong athlete with the wiry physique versus the magazine cover model with the bulging venous muscles, my money would be on the former. For this reason, if you have limited time to strength train or you want to prioritize your strength training choices, you should lift moderate to heavy weights very quickly with a low number of sets and reps versus lifting low to moderate weights to complete exhaustion for many reps. Now finally, for even more nitty-gritty scientific details on why small, strong muscles are probably healthier than big, bulky muscles, and for more on the antioxidant argument, I'd recommend you read an article that I'll link to over on the Perfect Health Diet website. And again, you can go to quickanddirtytips.com and just check out the show notes for Get Fit Guy episode 256 to get that. If you have more questions or comments about the potential health risks of bigger muscles and what kind of muscle you should really be trying to build, then go to facebook.com/getfitguy and join the conversation there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.